The holographic display flickered with a constellation of stellar data, casting a pale blue light across the bridge of the UES Defiance. Captain Jack Harper studied the map with an intensity that seemed to bore holes through the three-dimensional projection. Around him, the ship's command crew moved with a fluid precision that spoke of countless hours of preparation and an almost telepathic understanding. Outside the ship's reinforced viewports, the infinite darkness of space stretched like an endless canvas of potential conflict. Humanity's first true interstellar warship was a testament to decades of hidden technological development, a secret forge of innovation that had been brewing beneath the galaxy's collective notice. Jack's fingers traced the ship's schematics, each module telling a story of human ingenuity. The Defiance was unlike any vessel the Galactic Confederation had ever encountered. Where alien designs followed rigid, predictable patterns, this ship was a living system of adaptive technologies. Its hull was a patchwork of experimental materials, quantum reactive alloys developed in underground research stations, nano-composite layers that could restructure themselves in milliseconds, weapon systems that defied conventional military logic. He remembered the meetings that had led to this moment. The global councils, the late-night strategy sessions, the desperate race to prepare for a conflict that most of humanity didn't even know was coming. Earth had spent decades watching, learning, preparing, while the Galactic Confederation saw humans as primitive upstarts, a species barely worthy of acknowledgement. A different narrative was taking shape in hidden laboratories and classified research facilities. The ship's chief engineer, Marcus Rodriguez, approached with a tablet displaying the latest system diagnostics. "Final quantum calibrations are complete," he reported, his voice a mix of professional detachment and barely contained excitement. "The adaptive matrix is functioning at 98.7% efficiency. We've solved the thermal dissipation issues that were plaguing the earlier prototypes." Jack nodded, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. The earlier prototypes Rodriguez referenced were the failed attempts, ships and systems that had pushed the boundaries of human technological understanding. Each failure was a lesson, each setback a stepping stone to this moment. The Defiance was more than a warship. It was a message, a declaration of humanity's potential that would soon echo across the galaxy. Its core systems represented decades of unconventional thinking. Where alien technologies relied on established principles, human innovation thrived on breaking rules, on finding solutions that no one else could conceive. A soft chime interrupted Jack's thoughts. The ship's communication systems, a network so complex that it would take Confederation analysts decades to even begin to understand, brought up an incoming transmission. "Captain," the communications officer, Lieutenant Emily Chen, called out, "We're receiving preliminary intelligence about Zarnik fleet movements near the outer colonial zones." Jack's eyes narrowed. The Zarnik Imperium, the most militaristic faction within the Galactic Confederation, had been probing human territory for months. Each incursion was a test, a subtle pressure to see how humanity would respond. They were about to get their answer. The ship seemed to hum with potential energy, a living organism ready to be unleashed. Every system, every module, every piece of technology aboard the Defiance represented humanity's most audacious technological leap. It was a vessel designed not just to fight, but to revolutionize the very concept of space warfare. Memories of Earth's turbulent history flashed through Jack's mind. Centuries of conflict, of surviving against impossible odds, of adapting and overcoming. All of that had led to this moment. Humanity was not just another species in the galactic ecosystem. They were a force of nature, unpredictable and unbounded. The communication systems continued to ping with incoming data, strategic reports, colonial defense protocols, intelligence gathered from a network of sophisticated deep space monitoring stations. Each piece of information was another thread in the tapestry of humanity's preparation. Jack Harper looked out into the vast darkness, knowing that everything was about to change. The galaxy had forgotten about humanity. They were about to receive a brutal reminder. His hand rested casually on the ship's primary control interface, With a subtle gesture, he could unleash a technological marvel that would redefine interstellar conflict. The Defiance was not just a weapon. It was a statement. Humanity had arrived. The colony of New Santiago burned. Zark dropships descended through the atmosphere like metallic locusts, their sleek hulls gleaming with weapons that had decimated 100 different civilizations. They expected another easy conquest, another demonstration of the Galactic Confederation's overwhelming technological superiority. They were about to learn a different lesson. Lieutenant Rebecca Williams watched from the colony's underground control center, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that looked more like an artist's canvas than a traditional military system. Around her, a team of engineers, ex-military personnel, and civilian technologists worked with a frenetic energy that defied conventional military doctrine. The first wave of Zarnik ground forces hit the outer perimeter expecting minimal resistance. Instead, they encountered a nightmare of technological improvisation that would become legendary across the galaxy. Mining drones, originally designed to extract resources from New Santiago's harsh terrain, suddenly transformed into combat platforms. Their industrial-grade cutting lasers now carved through alien battle armor with terrifying precision. Automated agricultural systems redirected themselves, using irrigation networks as complex sensor grids and communication relays. Drone Squadron Beta, engage modified swarm protocol, Rebecca commanded. Her voice was calm, almost conversational, despite the chaos erupting outside. The mining drones moved with a coordination that seemed impossible. Where alien tactical systems relied on rigid command structures, these machines adapted in real time. Each drone communicated through a quantum-entangled network that was practically impossible to jam or intercept. They moved like a living organism, each unit making split-second decisions based on collective intelligence. A Zarnik commander would later describe the attack as fighting a living ecosystem rather than a traditional military force. Underground fiber optic networks, originally designed for colonist communication, now served as a distributed sensor array. Every buried cable, every communication line became a weapon. Passive sensors detected troop movements, while adaptive algorithms predicted and countered alien tactical approaches before they could be fully implemented. The colony's defense was not a traditional military response. It was an organism, adaptive, unpredictable, born from humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. In the command center, Marcus Rodriguez, who had transferred from the Defiance's engineering team, worked alongside local technicians. They were reprogramming industrial fabrication units, turning them into improvised weapon systems. A massive greenhouse's climate control system became an advanced thermal camouflage generator. Agricultural drones became reconnaissance and electronic warfare platforms. Incoming heavy artillery, a technician called out. Zarnik battle walkers, approximately 2 kilometers from the eastern perimeter. Rebecca's lips curled into a slight smile. Redirect agricultural irrigation systems. Activate ground-penetrating resonance. The Zarnik battle walkers, massive mechanical behemoths designed to crush conventional defenses, suddenly found themselves sinking into the ground. What appeared to be solid terrain liquefied beneath their massive weight, a result of carefully manipulated soil moisture and resonant frequency disruption. Outside, the battle became a surreal dance of technological improvisation. Zarnik soldiers found their advanced communication systems disrupted by signals piggybacked on local farming communication networks. Their thermal imaging was confused by complex heat signatures generated by repurposed industrial cooling systems. Every system the colonists possessed was being weaponized, transformed, reimagined. A Zarnik reconnaissance drone attempted to scan the colony's defenses. Instead of finding a traditional military installation, it encountered a living technological web that seemed to shift and breathe, defying all known reconnaissance protocols. "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered," a Zarnik tactical officer would later report, her voice filled with a mixture of professional analysis and genuine confusion. The colony wasn't just defending itself, It was teaching the invaders a brutal lesson about underestimating human creativity. As the first wave of Zarnik forces retreated, leaving behind smoking wreckage and confused survivors, the message was clear. New Santiago was not just a colony. It was a statement. Humanity had arrived, and they played by their own rules. The emergency session of the Galactic Confederation's High Council descended into chaos. Holographic displays flickered with data from New Santiago, images that defied every known model of technological engagement. Senior representatives from a dozen alien civilizations stared in collective disbelief at the tactical recordings. What should have been a simple punitive expedition had turned into a humiliating defeat that challenged everything they understood about warfare. Grand Adjudicator Krelnax of the Thorian Stellar Concordance slammed a crystalline appendage against the Council's central platform. "This is impossible," he declared, his translation matrix vibrating with barely contained frustration. "Humans are a pre-stellar species. They should not have the capacity for such technological adaptation." The main display showed a microscopic analysis of the defensive systems used at New Santiago. What looked like simple agricultural and mining equipment had been transformed into a complex, living network of defensive capabilities. Each piece of technology seemed to communicate and adapt in ways that violated fundamental principles of technological design. Ambassador Lyra Voss, the Confederation's lead xenological strategist, reviewed the data with growing unease. Her species had spent millennia cataloging and understanding technological development across the galaxy. Humanity was supposed to be a footnote, a primitive species barely worthy of serious consideration. Now, everything had changed. "The human defense of New Santiago represents a complete paradigm shift," she reported, her voice clinical and precise. "Their technological approach is not linear. It's organic, adaptive in a way we've never encountered." The council chamber fell silent. Each representative began reviewing the data through their own technological lenses, each finding something deeply unsettling. The Zarnik military attaché, a towering crystalline being named Vornak, played back tactical recordings. Mining drones transformed into weapon platforms, irrigation systems becoming complex sensor networks, agricultural fabrication units repurposed as electronic warfare generators. They did not fight, Vornak stated. They improvised. This was the most terrifying aspect of the human response. Traditional galactic warfare followed strict protocols. Weapons had specific purposes. Defense systems were carefully designed and implemented. But humans seemed to view technology as a fluid concept, something to be constantly reimagined and repurposed. Deep in the Council's classified archives, older records began to surface, reports from previous human interactions that had been dismissed or overlooked. A maritime conflict from the early 21st century, where humans had used consumer drones for complex military operations. Cybersecurity incidents where entire technological infrastructures were turned into weapons. The patterns had always been there. No one had been paying attention. "We need a comprehensive reassessment of human technological potential," Ambassador Voss recommended. "Our previous classifications are fundamentally incorrect." Grand Adjudicator Krelnax activated a secure communication channel. "Prepare a full strategic review and activate the deep reconnaissance protocols." Unbeknownst to the Council, Captain Jack Harper was already one step ahead. The UES Defiance sat in orbital dock, its adaptive hull shimmering with potential. Every system was calibrated, every module prepared. The ship was more than a weapon. It was a statement of human potential. Jack reviewed the incoming intelligence reports. The Confederation was scrambling, trying to understand what had happened at New Santiago. They were looking in the wrong direction, analyzing the wrong data. Humanity's true capabilities were still hidden. A message came through on a secure quantum channel. New Santiago's defenders were ready for the next phase. The colony wasn't just a defensive position. It was a message, a declaration of human technological philosophy. We will not be controlled. We will not be categorized. We adapt. The Galactic Confederation was about to learn a brutal lesson about underestimating a species born of conflict, tempered by innovation, and driven by an unquenchable spirit of survival. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same. The first major space engagement began not with a bang, but with a whisper of quantum disruption. The Zarnik battlecruiser Eternal Dominance represented the pinnacle of galactic military engineering. 6 kilometers of crystalline hull, weapon systems that could obliterate entire planetary defenses, and computational networks that had been refined over centuries of interstellar conflict. Its commander, High Strategos Vornak, had personally led conquests that had crushed a dozen emerging civilizations. Captain Jack Harper watched the approaching vessel through the Defiance's advanced sensor arrays, where alien ships relied on predetermined combat protocols. The human vessel was something entirely different, a living, breathing system of technological potential. Quantum entanglement networks at full synchronization, Lieutenant Emily Chen reported. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe and pulse with their own intelligence. Adaptive camouflage systems are online. Weapon matrix is fluid. The Defiance didn't look like a traditional warship. Its hull was a patchwork of experimental materials, sections that could restructure themselves, adaptive armor that could change properties in microseconds. Where alien vessels were precision-engineered monuments to technological supremacy, the human ship looked like a beautiful accident of engineering. Vornak's tactical display initially showed a straightforward engagement. Standard approach vectors, predictable defensive patterns. The Zarnik battlecruiser's computational systems began calculating potential attack strategies, running millions of tactical scenarios per second. They were about to discover the fundamental flaw in their approach. The first indication of trouble came when the Defiance seemingly disappeared from standard sensor arrays, not through traditional cloaking. Something far more complex. The ship didn't just hide. It became background noise, a technological whisper that confused and misdirected incoming sensor systems. Weapon systems reconfiguring. Marcus Rodriguez called out from the engineering station. Quantum adaptive calibration in progress. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for decades. The Defiance's weapon systems were not fixed installations. They were fluid, adaptive networks that could completely redesign themselves mid-combat. A particle beam generator could suddenly become a complex electromagnetic disruptor. Defensive shields could transform into offensive projection systems. Vornak watched in rising panic as his battlecruiser's systems began to fail. It wasn't just that the human ship was attacking. It was fundamentally rewriting the rules of space combat. Electromagnetic pulses struck the Eternal Dominance not from a single direction, but seemingly from everywhere at once. Computational systems that had been designed for linear threat assessment suddenly found themselves confronting a combat intelligence that was more organic than mechanical. Tactical systems compromised. A Zarnik officer screamed, "Our defensive matrices err." The rest of the communication was lost in a burst of quantum interference. The human approach to warfare was not about overwhelming force. It was about complete technological flexibility. Where the Zarnik battlecruiser had specific systems for specific purposes, the Defiance treated its entire structure as a single adaptive organism. Weapon systems cannibalizing themselves. Communication protocols becoming attack vectors. Every module of the ship capable of instant reconfiguration. Jack Harper's voice was calm, almost conversational. Initiate quantum cascade protocol. The Defiance seemed to shimmer, its very structure becoming fluid. Weapon systems that moments ago were defensive projectors now became complex communication disruptors. Computational networks rewrote themselves in milliseconds, turning the entire ship into a living weapon. The Eternal Dominance, a vessel that had been the pride of the Zarnik fleet for generations, was systematically taken apart. Not through brute force, but through a surgical dance of technological innovation that seemed to mock the very concept of space warfare. Vornak could only watch as his flagship was dismantled by an enemy that didn't just fight differently. They conceived of conflict in an entirely new way. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and they were rewriting all the rules. The communications intercept arrived on a quantum-encrypted channel that would have been considered impossible by galactic standards just weeks earlier. Deep within the Confederation's Central Intelligence Network, a team of linguistic analysts and synopsychologists worked furiously to deconstruct humanity's communication patterns. What they discovered was far more than a simple military transmission. It was a window into a species that defied every known model of technological and cultural development. The recording began with what sounded like laughter. "Did you see that?" Captain Jack Harper's voice crackled through the transmission, a mixture of professional assessment and pure, unbridled amusement. Vornak's face must have been priceless when we rewrote his entire computational matrix. Lieutenant Emily Chen responded with a chuckle that bordered on unprofessional. "I'm sending the tactical breakdown to R&D. They're going to love how we turned their own communication systems into a recursive feedback loop." Senior analyst Lyra Voss of the Galactic Confederation listened to the intercept for the 100th time. The human communication was unlike anything in the known galactic archives. There was no formal military protocol, no rigid command structure. Instead, the conversation flowed like an improvisational performance, each team member seemingly capable of making complex tactical decisions with minimal formal direction. The linguistic analysis team was losing their collective minds. Human communication didn't follow linear logic. It was filled with cultural references that seemed completely irrelevant to the immediate tactical situation. Historical quotes, dark humor, musical references. Each transmission was layers of meaning, with tactical information wrapped in complex social interactions. A Cortex xenolinguistic expert noted in her report, "Human communication is not a transfer of information. It is a performance, a form of cultural expression that happens to convey strategic data." The psychological profile that emerged was even more disturbing to the Confederation's analysts. Humans didn't view technological failure as a negative outcome. Each setback was an opportunity for innovation. Where other species would be demoralized by a complex challenge, humans seemed to become more energized. Their tactical communications were filled with what could only be described as excitement. During one intercepted communication, a human engineer discussed a near-catastrophic system failure with the same enthusiasm most species would reserve for a major scientific breakthrough. "We almost lost the quantum stabilization matrix," Marcus Rodriguez reported. "But check this out. I rewired the cooling system through the communication relays. It's not just a fix. It's a completely new approach to thermal management." The laughter that followed was key. Humans didn't just solve problems. They enjoyed the process of problem solving. Vornak, the Zarnik military commander who had suffered the devastating defeat, was brought before the Galactic Confederation's psychological evaluation team. His crystalline form vibrated with a mixture of professional embarrassment and genuine confusion. "They did not fight," he reported. "They played." It was the most accurate description anyone had yet produced about human military engagement. The tactical recordings told a story that defied conventional understanding. The Defiance wasn't just a warship. It was a technological canvas where human creativity was the primary weapon. Weapon systems that could reconfigure themselves. Communication networks that became attack vectors. Defensive systems that could transform into offensive capabilities in milliseconds. Each human team member seemed capable of stepping into any role at a moment's notice. The traditional military hierarchy meant nothing. Expertise was fluid. Creativity was the only true weapon. A classified report from the Confederation's top strategic analysts concluded with a chilling assessment. Humanity does not view technology as a tool. They view it as a living language that can be constantly reinterpreted. Jack Harper would have found that description hilarious. As the Defiance continued its mission, humanity was sending a message that echoed across the galaxy. We are not just another species. We are a force of nature, unpredictable, adaptive, and fundamentally uncontrollable. The game had changed, and humanity was just getting started. The human strike force moved like a living ecosystem through Confederation territory. Captain Jack Harper studied the holographic display, watching as their fleet, if it could even be called a traditional fleet, adapted and transformed with each passing moment. Where alien military doctrine demanded rigid formation and predictable engagement protocols, the human vessels operated more like a neural network, constantly shifting, communicating, and reimagining their tactical approach. The Defiance led a collection of vessels that defied traditional classification. Some were modified mining ships. Others were research vessels retrofitted with experimental weapon systems. Each craft carried a crew that was part engineer, part soldier, part improvisation artist. Incoming deep space communication intercept, Lieutenant Emily Chen called out. Her fingers danced across interfaces that seemed to breathe with technological potential. Zarnk Communication Network is attempting to predict our movement vectors. Jack's lips curled into a slight smile. Let them try. The strike force's approach was psychological warfare taken to its ultimate technological conclusion. They weren't just attacking Confederation infrastructure. They were systematically dismantling the myth of alien technological supremacy. A mining laser from one vessel suddenly became a precision communication disruptor. A cargo ship's industrial fabrication unit transformed into an advanced electronic warfare platform. Cargo containers became sensor arrays. Cooling systems became electromagnetic pulse generators. Marcus Rodriguez, the chief engineer, monitored the ship's adaptive systems with a mixture of professional concentration and pure scientific excitement. We're pushing the quantum adaptive matrix beyond anything we've tested, he reported. The computational systems are learning faster than our original algorithms predicted. The first major target was a Confederation deep space relay station, a massive infrastructure hub that had coordinated military and scientific communications for 3 stellar sectors. Traditional military doctrine would suggest a direct assault with overwhelming force. The human approach was something entirely different. Instead of destroying the station, they began to rewrite its fundamental operating parameters. Communication networks were subtly manipulated. Data streams were redirected. The station's own systems were turned against its defensive capabilities. Initiating Quantum Cascade Protocol, Emily announced. The relay station's sophisticated defensive systems began to fail in ways that defied logical analysis. Weapon platforms redirected their own targeting systems. Communication relays began broadcasting seemingly random data streams that were actually complex mathematical disruption algorithms. Vornak, watching from a remote tactical center, could only stare in mounting horror. The humans weren't just attacking. They were teaching a lesson. Each engagement became a demonstration of human technological philosophy. Weapons were not fixed objects but fluid concepts. A cargo container could become a precision sensor platform. A mining drill could transform into a communication disruption device. The strike force moved through Confederation territory like a technological virus. They didn't seek total destruction. They sought to demonstrate the fundamental weakness in the alien civilization's approach to technology and warfare. We're not here to conquer, Jack explained during a secure briefing. We're here to change the conversation. Intercepted communications revealed the psychological impact. Confederation military analysts were struggling to comprehend an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. Their computational systems, designed to predict and counter known tactical approaches, were completely overwhelmed. A Xorian strategic analyst's report captured the mounting frustration. The humans do not fight. They improvise. And in doing so, they render our entire military doctrine obsolete. The strike force's final act was perhaps its most profound statement. They didn't destroy the Confederation's infrastructure. They revealed its fundamental vulnerabilities. Each system they touched was left functional but fundamentally changed, a living demonstration of human technological potential. As they prepared to withdraw, Jack Harper looked out at the transformed stellar landscape. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same. The message was clear. We are not just another species. We are a force of technological imagination, that defies comprehension. The diplomatic chamber of the Galactic Confederation was a masterpiece of architectural complexity. Crystalline walls shifted with holographic displays, representing millennia of interstellar negotiation. Alien representatives from a dozen different civilizations sat in carefully arranged positions of hierarchical significance. They were about to meet humanity's representatives. Captain Jack Harper walked into the chamber with Lieutenant Emily Chen and Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez. They didn't conform to any diplomatic protocol. Their uniforms were functional, not ceremonial. Their posture suggested more of a collaborative workshop than a formal negotiation. Grand Adjudicator Krelnax of the Xorian Stellar Concordance initiated the proceedings. His crystalline form shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that traditionally signaled diplomatic formality. The Galactic Confederation has reviewed the recent incidents involving human military actions. Jack's response was not what anyone expected. "We're here to discuss collaboration, not apologize," he stated simply. The translation matrix struggled to capture the nuanced mixture of professional respect and complete lack of deference. The diplomatic records would later note that this was the moment everything changed. Ambassador Lyra Voss, the Confederation's lead xenological strategist, had spent decades studying emerging civilizations. Humanity was supposed to be a footnote, a species barely worthy of serious consideration. Her comprehensive reports had been spectacularly wrong. "Your technological approach violates every known principle of military engagement," she challenged. Marcus Rodriguez leaned forward, a technical diagram materializing between them. It showed how the Defiance's weapon systems could completely reconfigure themselves mid-combat. "That's precisely the point," he explained. "Technology is not a fixed concept. It's a living language of potential." The alien representatives struggled to comprehend the fundamental difference in perspective. Where Confederation civilizations saw technology as a precise, engineered tool, humans viewed it as a creative medium. Weapon systems that could become communication arrays. Defensive platforms that could transform into offensive capabilities. Each technological system was a canvas of potential, not a fixed implementation. Vornak, the Zarnik military commander who had suffered the most significant defeat, spoke next. "You do not fight like any species we have encountered. Your approach defies rational analysis." Emily Chen's response was accompanied by a series of tactical recordings. Mining lasers becoming communication disruptors. Cargo ships transforming into complex sensor platforms. Each video was a masterclass in technological improvisation. "We don't see barriers," she explained. "We see opportunities." The diplomatic challenge was not about military superiority. It was about fundamentally different approaches to technological and cultural development. The Confederation had spent millennia developing rigid, hierarchical systems of technological progression. Humanity had developed an approach that was fluid, adaptive, and fundamentally unpredictable. Jack Harper's final presentation was not a traditional diplomatic argument. It was a demonstration of human potential. He walked them through the new Santiago defense, the strike force's mission, the technological innovations that had completely upended galactic military doctrine. Each explanation was less a formal report and more a creative exploration of possibility. "We're not asking for permission," Jack stated. "We're offering partnership, on equal terms." The subtext was unmistakable. This was not a species seeking integration. This was a civilization declaring its arrival. Ambassador Voss realized something profound. Humanity was not just another emerging species. They were a fundamental disruption to the entire galactic ecosystem of technological and cultural development. The diplomatic session would continue for weeks, but the fundamental dynamic had already been established. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and they were rewriting all the rules. The quantum slipstream rippled around the UES Defiance, a testament to humanity's relentless innovation. Captain Jack Harper stood on the bridge, watching the fabric of space-time bend around the ship's adaptive hull. The conflict that had brought humanity to the galactic stage was over, but the real transformation was just beginning. The Galactic Confederation had not been defeated. It had been fundamentally reimagined. Diplomatic channels that had once been rigid hierarchical structures now pulsed with a new energy. Human representatives didn't just participate in galactic politics. They challenged every fundamental assumption about cooperation, technology, and potential. Marcus Rodriguez monitored the ship's systems, each module a living demonstration of human technological philosophy. The Defiance was more than a warship now. It was a diplomatic instrument, a technological showcase, a symbol of humanity's approach to existence. Quantum adaptive matrix at 99.7% synchronization, he reported, his voice a mixture of professional precision and barely contained excitement. The computational learning curves are beyond our original projections. Lieutenant Emily Chen managed a complex network of communication relays that redefined interstellar information exchange. Where alien civilizations saw communication as a transfer of data, humans transformed it into a dynamic, living system of potential and creativity. The conflict had revealed something profound about humanity. They were not the strongest species, not the most technologically advanced, but absolutely the most unpredictable. Vornak, the Zarnik military commander who had once sought to crush humanity, now sat on a joint strategic council. His crystalline form vibrated with a new understanding. The humans had not conquered through overwhelming force. They had transformed the entire concept of conflict and cooperation. Ambassador Lyravas's comprehensive report to the Confederation captured the fundamental shift. Humanity represents not a new species entering the galactic stage, but a complete reimagining of technological and cultural potential. Their approach is not linear. It is not hierarchical. It is a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation. The changes were visible everywhere. Confederation research facilities that had been rigidly structured for millennia now incorporated human-inspired adaptive methodologies. Technology was no longer seen as a fixed implementation, but as a creative medium. Weapon systems could become communication arrays. Defensive platforms could transform into collaborative tools. Jack Harper understood that this was about more than military engagement. This was about a fundamental approach to existence. The UES Defiance emerged from the quantum slipstream, its hull bearing the scars of conflict, each mark a story of improvisation, of turning limitations into opportunities. The ship was a living metaphor for humanity's potential. Alien civilizations that had once seen humans as a minor, inconsequential species now studied every aspect of human development. Their communication systems, their approach to problem-solving, their ability to turn constraints into creative opportunities. A joint research initiative brought together species that had been opponents mere months earlier. Zorian computational experts worked alongside human engineers. Zarnik military strategists collaborated with human diplomatic specialists. The first human-led interstellar research station became a beacon of this new approach. Its design defied traditional architectural principles. Modules that could reconfigure themselves. Communication systems that were living, adaptive networks. Every system a potential solution waiting to be discovered. "We're not here to conquer," Jack would often explain during diplomatic sessions. "We're here to collaborate, to explore, to reimagine what's possible." As the Defiance completed its patrol of the newly defined collaborative zones, Jack reflected on the journey. Humanity had not entered the galactic stage through overwhelming force. They had done so by challenging every fundamental assumption about technological and cultural development. The quantum drives hummed with potential. The adaptive hull continued to reconfigure, a living demonstration of human innovation. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.